Hello everyone, it's your host of Dreaded Dreams TV with another crazy scary story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps a lot. I woke up one stormy night to the sound of heavy rain and distant thunder. The rhythmic tapping on our bedroom window seemed to sync with the beating of my anxious heart. As I lay there trying to shake off the remnants of a nightmare, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the storm outside. It was a lingering sense of unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. We had recently moved to a quaint suburban neighborhood, seeking a peaceful life away from the chaos of the city. Little did we know that tranquility came at a high price. Our house backed onto a dense thicket of woods, and beyond that, an eerie, dilapidated house. The neighborhood rumors whispered that it was owned by a reclusive man named Mr. Blackwell. He seldom ventured out during the day, and his nocturnal activities were shrouded in mystery. My wife, Lisa, and our two young kids, Emma and Jake, were still fast asleep, oblivious to my growing concern. I decided to check on them before investigating the unsettling sounds outside. As I crept into Emma's room, I noticed her nightlight flickering erratically. The room, dimly lit, revealed her peacefully sleeping form. I shook off the unease and moved to Jake's room. As I entered, my gaze fell upon the open window. The curtains billowed, dancing with the wind, and I immediately felt a chill run down my spine. I closed the window, securing it with a sense of urgency that I couldn't quite explain. The room felt stifling, as if the air itself held a secret. Returning to our bedroom, I decided to peek through the blinds and assess the storm's severity. Lightning intermittently illuminated the surroundings, revealing the silhouette of Mr. Blackwell's house behind ours. Its windows, like empty eyes, stared back at me. I shook off the eerie feeling and tried to attribute my unease to a vivid imagination fueled by the storm. Days turned into weeks, and a peculiar pattern began to emerge. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mr. Blackwell's house came alive with strange noises. Shadows moved behind the curtained windows, and sometimes the faint sound of hushed whispers reached our ears. Lisa dismissed my concerns, attributing them to the stress of the move and an overactive imagination. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. One night I awoke to the sound of footsteps outside our bedroom window. The storm had subsided, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. I got up, quietly moved to the window, and cautiously peered through the blinds. My blood ran cold as I saw Mr. Blackwell standing in our backyard, his eyes fixated on our house. He seemed to be muttering something under his breath, his lips moving in a rhythm that sent shivers down my spine. Fear gripped me, but anger overcame it. I stormed outside, demanding an explanation for his intrusive presence. Mr. Blackwell, however, remained unfazed. His gaze was vacant, his responses cryptic. I warned him to stay away from my family and retreated, but the encounter left a lingering sense of dread. In the following days, our lives took a darker turn. Lisa began receiving anonymous letters, each one filled with disturbing details about our daily lives. The author seemed to know our routines, our habits, even the color of the pajamas our children wore to bed. The letters became increasingly explicit, describing a level of intimacy that left us all unnerved. I installed security cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the culprit, but the letters continued. Our once idyllic life morphed into a nightmare, and the sense of security within our own home evaporated. I couldn't escape the feeling that Mr. Blackwell was behind the torment, a puppet master orchestrating our descent into madness. One evening, as I reviewed the security footage, my heart sank. The cameras captured Mr. Blackwell lurking around our property, peering through windows with an unsettling intensity. He seemed to relish in our fear, a twisted satisfaction etched across his face. I contacted the police, presenting the evidence, but they claimed there was little they could do without concrete proof of malicious intent. Desperation set in, and I decided to confront Mr. Blackwell once more. Armed with the footage, I approached his decaying abode. The air around his property felt suffocating, as if the very atmosphere was tainted by his malevolence. I banged on his door, demanding answers. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the dimly lit interior of his home. The stench of decay wafted out, and I hesitated before crossing the threshold. The hallway stretched into darkness, and the only sound was the echoing drip of water. My steps echoed as I ventured deeper into the abyss. Suddenly, A flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned to see a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It was Mr. Blackwell, his hunched form barely visible in the dim light. The air became thick with tension as he spoke, his voice a haunting whisper. "I've been watching you, studying your every move. Your fear is my entertainment," he uttered, a sick pleasure evident in his tone. Anger and fear converged within me. I confronted him about the letters, the intrusion into our lives, and the terror he had unleashed upon my family. Mr. Blackwell merely chuckled, a sinister sound that sent shivers down my spine. "You invited me in the moment you chose to live here. This house, this neighborhood, it's all mine. Your family is merely a pawn in my game," he declared, his eyes gleaming with madness. The revelation sent a chill down my spine, and I recoiled from the realization that our seemingly peaceful haven was a breeding ground for something far more sinister. With newfound determination, I fled his house, vowing to protect my family from this malevolent force. As days passed, we implemented every security measure imaginable. Yet the terror persisted. The letters continued, more insidious than before, as if mocking our attempts to escape. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by the relentless paranoia that accompanied every creak of the floorboards or rustle of leaves outside. One fateful night, as darkness blanketed the neighborhood, our house descended into chaos. The power went out, plunging us into an inky blackness that seemed to devour all sense of safety. In the oppressive silence, we heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. Panic set in as we fumbled for flashlights, our trembling hands betraying our fear. A sudden crash shattered the silence, and we raced to the source of the noise. The children's bedroom door swung open ominously, revealing a scene of horror. The room was in disarray, toys scattered, and the shattered window a gateway to the outside world. Panic gripped us as we frantically searched for Emma and Jakey. Outside, a chilling sight awaited us. Mr. Blackwell stood in the yard, his eyes gleaming with malevolence. In his hands, he clutched the torn remains of one of the letters, the ink still wet. He grinned, revealing a set of yellow, decaying teeth. "They're mine now," he hissed, disappearing into the shadows. Fear and rage surged through me as I pursued him into the night, determined to rescue my children from the clutches of this deranged neighbor. The woods behind our house seemed to close in, the trees whispering ominous secrets as I pressed forward. Hours passed, but there was no sign of Mr. Blackwell or my abducted children. Exhausted and disoriented, I stumbled upon an ancient, dilapidated structure hidden within the thicket. Its skeletal frame loomed ominously, a relic of a forgotten time. Instinctively, I knew this was the heart of the darkness that had infiltrated our lives. As I cautiously entered the decaying structure, the air grew heavier with each step. Shadows danced on the walls, and the distant echoes of sinister laughter reverberated through the corridors. The place seemed alive, a malevolent entity that thrived on fear and despair. In the heart of the structure, I found a room bathed in an otherworldly glow. There, in the center, stood Mr. Blackwell, a grotesque grin etched on his face. My children were suspended in midair, their eyes vacant and their bodies contorted in unnatural positions. The room pulsated with an otherworldly energy as Mr. Blackwell reveled in his macabre display. "You see, they're mine now. Forever," he taunted, his voice echoing through the chamber. With every ounce of strength within me, I lunged at him, determined to free my children from his sinister grasp. A surreal battle unfolded, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring as we grappled in the otherworldly realm. In the end, it was a burst of blinding light that enveloped the room, dispelling the darkness that had taken root. As the light receded, I found myself standing alone in the decaying structure. The air was thick with residual malevolence, but my children were gone, as was Mr. Blackwell. Dread turned to hope as I realized I was not alone. Outside the decaying structure, Neighbor's Malevolent Game, stood Emma and Jake, their eyes wide with wonder and confusion. They rushed into my arms, the weight of the ordeal lifting from our shoulders. The nightmare was over. The authorities were unable to comprehend the events that unfolded, dismissing them as the product of a stressed mind. The neighborhood, oblivious to the horrors that transpired, continued its facade of normalcy. But the memory of that night lingered, haunting my dreams and casting a perpetual shadow over our once promising life. We moved away, leaving behind the cursed house, the dilapidated structure, and the enigmatic Mr. Blackwell. Yet the scars of that night remained etched in our minds, a constant reminder that darkness could lurk behind the most idyllic facade. As we sought to rebuild our lives, the whispers of that malevolent force lingered, a chilling testament to the thin veil that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, the real from the unreal.